Hey Vash, what'd you think of the new Korra video game?
I don't know, man. But check out my mixtape, though.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
Dude, that's a forest fire.
That still can't melt steel beams, though.
Now watch this drive.
What's up, fam? How we doing? My name is Vash TSB, and welcome to Selling Point, a series where I talk about smaller, lesser-known titles and try to pique interest in them, for better or for worse. Now, as you can hopefully tell by the title, unless you're like blind or some shit, I don't know, we're talking about The Legend of Korra today.
Finally, Vash is reviewing some classic Japanese animation.
Actually, I'm talking about the Legend of Korra video game released by Platinum Games. That's right, Platinum Games, developers of such amazing titles as Bootyquake, Asspocalypse 2, and RoboHip's The Man-Ass Experience.
Oh lordy, so much ass.
Now let me preface this by saying that for all intents and purposes, Korra was a game that I wanted to like a lot more than I did.
Got him!
But in fairness, I'm not sure that I approached Korra with a really clear or fair plan for what I would actually experience. I'd never watched the show this game is based on, but in earnest, I really want to now. Legend of Korra, in essence, is a game made for fans of the series, which is fine, a good thing, great even, if you enjoyed the show in question. But it makes appraising the game on a number of fronts quite a thorny issue. Perhaps I should explain. Look, this is a title that has me in two minds on how to think of it. On the one hand, it would be easy of me to fall into the mindset that the game's failings as a beat-em-up are excusable because this isn't really meant for die-hard beat-em-up players like myself. Rather, the game is meant for fans of the Legend of Korra series who just want to play as one of their favorite characters. Speaking of, Korra is a very cool, likable character that I legitimately enjoyed playing as. Bearing in mind, I never really watched Legend of Korra proper, but after this title, I legitimately do want to give the series a try. But the game has a pretty decent, cartoony art style that only occasionally looks, let's say, subpar. But overall, the color and environments are a fun time, and it's a grim reminder once again that a little bit of fucking color can actually make for a more pleasing visual experience. The story of Legend of Korra also has me in two minds regarding target audience. On the one hand, the story seems largely disconnected to any real storyline in the animated series. Basically, the story here begins and ends entirely within itself. This isn't exactly a bad thing, it's good for people who aren't familiar with the show, allowing them to enjoy a self-contained narrative. But it can be frustrating for hardcore fans of the series who are looking for a legitimate extension to the story. And the game itself starts off with a very nice, natural difficulty curve, much like Korra herself. And it introduces gameplay concepts at a very smooth pace. And the level of execution required is low enough to where you can basically first try perfect parries on attacks without needing to worry about training. There really is something to be said for how much of a pick-up-and-play experience Korra actually is. I hear pretty often how much effort you need to put into a beat-em-up to be efficient or stylish with it, and whilst that is true in most cases, I found that Korra was one of the more inviting games of its type. Incidentally, this means that the game could be introduced to someone who has never even played a beat-em-up before, and they will learn it relatively quickly. This could actually lead to more players getting interested in these types of games, which is an admirable goal generally speaking. The game has a severe martial arts focus, and I like that sort of thing. The game reminds me a lot of God Hand, in a good way. There's a surprising amount of customization from such a cheap title, and there are plenty of moves and upgrades to get as you go through your adventure. The Legend of Korra as a game has an excellent sense of flow to it. After acquiring a couple of upgrades and bending styles, you'll find that the game accommodates your playstyle rather well. And speaking of bending styles, those who aren't familiar with this series and what the universe has in terms of lore,
Watch the fucking fucking show!
There are 4 different fighting styles that Korra has to earn and use throughout her adventure. Each of the 4 styles has a distinct playstyle and moveset to them. The game has a great sense of tension and release to it. It's practically a Platinum Games staple at this point, and they continue to show their mastery of the concept here. So yeah, the combat is very rewarding to engage in. Seriously, it didn't take me long to start using attacks in conjunction with defense and the chi mechanic, which made me feel right at home. All of this meant that on a first-time playthrough, the game was a breeze to pick up and play, and I think that's one of the strengths of Korra. Like I said, the game could serve as a great introduction to beat-em-ups, and it can also work as a nice little side game to play whilst you're taking breaks from other games without any real issues. But this is a Platinum game, and Platinum is known just as well for their use of set-piece segments that totally don't interrupt the game in any way, shape, or form.
Just fucking run, Raiden! God, there are memes?
And Korra is no exception. Korra has a decent amount of internal variety within its pro-bending, which is similar to Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, and that some people actually think this shit is a sport. Then we have what are called Nagas Runs, which just act like playable transitions between large distances. These gameplay segments work well enough in breaking up the game such that you aren't always partaking in combat. Which would be a good thing if only the game's combat was bad. Which it isn't. Yeah, so you'll find yourself desperately wanting to just get through these segments as quickly as possible to get back to the most rewarding experience in the game, which is the fighting. Korra, just like any other game you'll play, is not perfect. What I found the most frustrating off the bat was regarding the controls. First and foremost, the style switching. Now here's where we get to play the brain tickler. So, you are a person on a development team designing a button layout for a video game character. Just fucking go with it, okay? Your character has 4 different modes that each change the way that character controls and plays. Your controller space is limited, but you have the option of allocating each stance to the directional pad, which has 4 individual buttons that allow the player to enter what stance they want when they want, or you can put those same 4 stances on 2 buttons that require cycling back and forth in such a way that guarantees that at least one stance will always be 2 inputs away in either direction. What do? Ooh, I have an idea. What about the bumpers? Dude, think about it. Just put them on the bumpers. Were you going to say the bumpers? Because I was thinking the bumpers. Dude, it's like we're on the same wavelength. It's weird, I know. And we're both fucking wrong. Seriously, guys. What the fuck were you thinking? This was easily one of the most basic mistakes imaginable. Seriously, the fix here is so basic and beneficial that you fix 2 issues straight away. Simply rebind bending styles to the D-pad and make L1 a button that lets you access your items if you absolutely must have live item use. Then R1 can become a much needed lock-on input. And speaking of controller changes, I hope you like your beat-em-ups with the jump button bound to the X button, because I sure as fuck don't, and I hope you like every other decision regarding your button layout made for you intrinsically, because this ain't no options menu, Sonny D. And if you think this shit is okay, I recommend committing samurai. Keeping with that, you're likely to find that enemy variety is pretty lacking as well. Seriously, in a universe as rich with martial arts masters as the Avatar series, it's a serious letdown to keep fighting the same boring-ass ninjas and robots all the time. I don't know how they did it, but ninjas and giant robots are boring. And buyer beware. A surprising amount of balance is just going to be lost as soon as the shock ninjas are introduced, and from that point on, the game just fails at balancing. So you're always bouncing back and forth between hilariously easy fights and frustrating encounters with nearly no middle ground. Now sure, there were plenty of deaths I had in my first playthrough that were the result of overconfidence and general spaghetti, but a lot of the time, the deaths were seemingly unavoidable due to the fact that the camera is utterly garbage. This has a series of knock-on issues that makes mechanical deaths very easy to justify, but conversely means that deaths at the hands of the camera just aren't acceptable. Two of the biggest issues this game has are unfortunately pretty common through a majority of Platinum titles. First, lock-on just isn't good. It's slow and it doesn't always keep your lock-on target in frame. Second, enemies can attack you from off-screen. Now, I don't care who you are, enemies attacking from off-screen just isn't justifiable. It's probably one of the worst issues in beat-em-ups, and it completely demolishes fairness to an absurd degree. This means that as time moves forward in a playthrough and the enemy waves increase in size, Korra just gets overwhelmed. This is a much larger issue on extreme difficulty, and it led me to just throwing myself at fights endlessly until I beat them through sheer luck and RNG. But I'd be lying if I said that these issues made the game completely unfun. Legend of Korra is still fun in spite of this, and no amount of bad camera angles will make Korra any less of a waifu. Would I recommend The Legend of Korra? Is it worth your time and money? Yeah, it is. My name has been VashTSB, and I'll see you guys soon.